All right, so we're here with three-time world champion Kyle Berkshire, longtime supporter of the Net Return brand. I'm Brandon. I'm the COO of the Net Return. My family started the company 15 years ago. Kyle's been using our product, training since he was a kid. So we're going to be walking you through his childhood, getting into college, how he got into World Long Drive, and some of his aspirations going forward. We're super excited to have you, Kyle, and we really appreciate the support of our brand and how much you're training.
No, yeah, I mean, it's been a product that I was a customer for. And I've always made every effort in my career to partner with brands that I personally believe in or align with. Yeah, it did a lot for me as a kid and even now. So, you know, it's a partnership I really enjoy.
Awesome. Well, we really enjoyed it as well. And we want to get into some of the stuff of you growing up and kind of your evolution into golf. So you want to talk about how you started golf, who got you into golf, and who got you obsessed with golf?
Yeah, so the first time I had a golf club put in my hands was my third birthday. My mother played professionally in the early 80s, and my father owned a couple golf clubs. So it was kind of a given that I was going to be introduced to golf early. I think my first tournament I played in, I was 3.5, and I shot 46 for 9 holes and almost won the 6 and under division. It's a qualifier for the U.S. Kids World Championship. And then next year I won my qualifier and played in the U.S. Kids World Championship for the first time at the age of 5. So golf's been a part of my DNA for my entire life. By the time I was like 9 or 10, it was my life. So from the age of 10 years old, I had a full competitive schedule. As I progressed through the ranks, it looked more and more like golf could be a future, not just something I was doing for fun. So around the age of 14 or 15, I started really pursuing it heavily. I went from maybe spending 15, 20 hours a week to 30 or 40 hours a week in the summers. And as my game progressed, you know, I quickly found out that I had a good chance to play Division I. And then I got really, really good around the age of 16 or 17. And that's when I had the opportunity to play for very high mid-major Division I teams and even top 25 Division I teams and get exposed to like guys that are on tour now, like Cameron Young, Colin Morikawa, those types of guys. You know, I played a lot of tournaments with them growing up. In fact, I played in Cameron Young's group like I think 2 or 3 different times in 2 or 3 rounds throughout my competitive season at the age of 16 and then 17. And then as I went into college, I was fairly heavily recruited and ended up signing with North Texas. And they produced Carlos Ortiz and Sebastian Munoz, so guys that are on LIV now. And at the time, they were both on the team. So North Texas was ranked, I think they peaked at 3rd in the country. So they were absolutely dirty. And then, I progressed through college and started getting the long drive when my speed exploded. Got in a long drive, did that for 5 or 6 years, and I still do it. But now over the last year or so, I've been moving back towards professional golf and exploring what's there with that.
Let's kind of go back to like, you know, as a kid, what is, you know, junior golf like? I know it's a little bit different than like baseball, football, some of these other sports where it's a little bit more like linear path. How do you kind of navigate junior golf? Is it just going to a bunch of tournaments, your parents following you around, or is it really something where, you know, you can kind of see and differentiate yourself and that gets you more access as you're going through the ranks as a kid?
I definitely think if you want to play high-level golf, it's important to start young. And I do think that starting at the age of 5 or 6 versus starting at 13 or 14 makes it a lot easier to have a career in golf. The toughest part about junior golf is it's just you. The vast majority of sports, even sports that are individual sports, they kind of start out as team sports even for kids, but golf is never a team sport. And so being very, very young, you have to really learn early how to deal with failures because it's on you and it's only on you. So as a kid, it can be tough to process failure because it's hard to understand what's happening and how to handle it. So that's the hardest part of junior golf, is not letting the game beat you up. And so those that learn to handle that and understand that's the nature of the game, they tend to do really well. Those that don't learn that tend to wash out and play other sports. But that was the biggest thing I noticed. And then as you get older, the great thing about junior golf is it's a pipeline now. Not when I was a kid, but now there's PGA Tour U, there's all these junior invitationals on these huge tournaments. And it's almost like if you can get into that by the time you're 11 or 12, be one of the top guys, you kind of get a ton of opportunity to get thrown into this pipeline where you're being funneled towards professional golf and you're given the resources and tools to develop into a successful pro. And that's a lot more now so than it was 15 years ago when I was coming up.
And when you were younger, like how much were you training? Was it a daily thing, a couple times a week? Like when did you kind of shift in terms of your training? Was it
When I was
more-
11 or 12, like from the age of about 3 to 10, it was just another sport I played, but I definitely tended to play that most. But once I turned about 11 or 12, it shifted more from like, practicing and playing with my friends once in a while to like, I was intentionally going to the course to improve something or to work on something.
And talk about like growing up in Crofton, Maryland. Obviously it's in the Northeast. You only have a select few months to be out on the course. How did you kind of navigate that, at 11, 12, when you were like, hey, this is something I could really be good at? How did you really get into that whole mindset of how am I going to practice? How am I going to become the best from this region?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely tough because Maryland's not known as a hub for golf. It's not by any means like a Florida, California, Texas, or a Georgia, but the biggest thing was that from the age of about 12 to 15 or 14, I kind of just did with what I could. If I got a good day in the winter, I'd go out and play. If I didn't, I'd stay in. Right around the age of 16, when I decided I really wanted to pursue this game beyond college, not just try to get a scholarship somewhere, that's when I decided I needed to be able to practice more and more, and that's where the net return came in. I believe I purchased my net return in 2013 when I was 16 years old, and that was when I made that decision that this was going to become more than just like a sport I could maybe use to get an education. Like this was something I was going to try to do for a living. And so the net return was very essential because the biggest thing the net return does that people don't realize, it reduces friction. So friction is defined as something that prevents you from doing something. So like if you're talking about like a sales funnel, you want a sales funnel funneling customers directly to the product. You don't want them to have to find another link or to click on something else. You want directing them right to the thing. And so the net return, what it did was, one, I got to practice in comfortable conditions, i.e. climate controlled, or even if it was outside, I could pop out, hit some balls, and go back in for warmth. So that was very much less friction, because if I was kind of on the fence, that might make a difference between me going and practicing and not, is that I can at least be warm. The second thing is you don't have to drive to a golf course anymore. So I can pop out. If I had 15 minutes to just work on something, I could do that. And that made a huge difference because it doesn't do much that one day, but over the course of months and months, because the winter season in Maryland's about 4 months, if you're every couple of days, you're doing an extra 15, 20 minutes of work on something, that adds up big time. And it turns into big changes that summer. And so it really played a central role into me developing my game, because the summer of 2012, I was good. The summer of 2013, I was really good. And then the summer of 2014, I was one of the best players in the country. And I think this had a lot to do with it.
Who is your biggest motivator in terms of like helping you, obviously there's days you don't want to train, right? You got school, you got a lot of things going on when you're 16 years old. Girls are entering the equation, stuff like that. Who is your biggest motivator to be like, hey, Kyle, get out there and train? Was it more, were you inner motivated, or you felt like, your dad, mom?
I would say a lot of it. I had parents who obviously were good about supporting what I was doing, but it was very self-motivated. Like, I'd be honest, I didn't go to any parties. I didn't have a lot to do with, I had a few friends, but I was just way more interested in the idea of playing this game for a living, and that was all the motivation I needed.
So let's talk about college golf from when you were 16, 17, making that jump from high school competitive junior golf into college. What was some of the biggest things you saw from some of these players you were playing against, and how the talent level was just in college, and with all your teammates, how much they were practicing, and what the actual commitment was for college golf to get at that level?
Yeah, I mean, it was a tough transition for me because coming from Maryland into the Northeast, I was used to being the best player around. And when I went to, because at the time North Texas was in the top 25 in the country. Those are the type of programs that have future PGA Tour pros. And at the time they had two, actually three, because one of my roommates just got his PGA Tour card a couple months ago. So I was immediately thrust onto a team with three future PGA Tour players. And it was pretty shocking because one of them was the CUSA, which was our conference player of the year that year. And the other one had just graduated and was already on an incredible trajectory on the Korn Ferry Tour. So playing with them, it was first time I'd seen it, first time I'd seen guys who were probably already PGA Tour caliber players, not just guys on a great trajectory. They were already good enough to play. It was just a matter of getting the rounds under their belt to earn the status. And that was pretty jarring for me because I realized, wow, these guys are unbelievable. So that messed my confidence a little bit and definitely led to me not really enjoying the game as much. because I was used to beating everybody, and then playing against these guys, it was just a little different. I was having trouble beating them, and I never really struggled with that in my career. As college progressed, I started working out, started getting stronger in the gym. My speed exploded. And I started seeing my numbers go really fast. And the way I looked at it was, oh, this is great, like it's gonna help me score better, and I can keep working on my short game and work on a few things. By the time my sophomore year rolled around, I was starting to figure it out. I was starting to play a lot better, and I really felt confident that I was back on track. My plan was to probably turn pro halfway through my junior year. I felt like, as a sophomore, I felt like I needed another year and a half of seasoning and experience before I'd be ready. And then 2016, the end of 2016, the World Long Drive Championship was on, and it was only 30 miles from North Texas. It was in southern Oklahoma. And I think what won it was like 211 ball speed, and I was like 208 with a play driver. And I had a lot of guys tell me just do a qualifier the next year for fun, and I thought it would be a funny little thing to do, and just rip the golf ball, have some fun with it. And I went and won the qualifier, which was something I wasn't really expecting. And it was a qualifier for the World Championships. So I was like, it'd be fine to say I did this, and I just pushed back turning pro one more year. That's fine. I'm not in a rush. I'm 20 years old, and there's no rush. And so I went to Worlds and finished third. I almost won it, and I was really very easily could have won it. And I saw the money. It was like quite substantial at the time, and I felt like I would be able to win a world championship before I would get a tour card. And I felt if I won a world championship, it would set a platform for my brand where I would have no expiration date on playing professionally. And the cool thing about my situation is because I've already carved out a career in the game of golf, and I've done a lot of cool things in my early years. I don't feel like by any means I've wasted them at this point. I have an unlimited time horizon. I might be good enough to play at the highest level next year. I might not be good enough till I'm 35, but the cool part about it is there's no rush. I'm not in a situation where there's a time clock. I know that I just gotta keep putting in the work, and I have all the time in the world to get to that level because I don't have to retire and get a job because I already have a job. So that was my reasoning as to why I did long drive, and it worked perfectly because now I'm in a position where I can just take my time with it and get as good as I want.
Let's kind of pivot into that, like coming out of college. So you do your first qualifier, you win that, right? Then you finish third in World Long Drive. Obviously you resonated with the sport. When did you kind of take that on as like, hey, this is a good pathway for me as a pro golfer. I'm hitting the ball super far. I got all this gas in the tank. When did you kind of really devote yourself to like, hey, I want to break the world records. I want to win tournaments in World Long Drive, and I want to take this serious?
I would say it was the end of 2018. My first 2 years of sport were pretty good, and I was on a good trajectory, but I wasn't dominant by any means, but I was top 5 hitter. And then 2019, end of 2018, 2019, that's when I started taking it full time. Stopped going to college, really threw the kitchen sink at it, and I just got stupid good in like 4 months. I went from a top hitter to untouchable.
What was the training process like on that? Obviously, it's like shifting gears from being on the course.
It was probably like 400 to 600 golf balls a day.
Wow.
Really dialing in my conditioning, toughening up my body, and just learning everything I could about ball flight, getting stronger, making sure my equipment was where it needed to be, and then just understanding how to win. That was the biggest thing. And then getting myself into those situations and then breaking through and winning. That kind of opened the floodgates. And then I won my last 5 events of 2019, including the World Championship. And at that point, my path was fairly set. I achieved what I was set out to do, which was to win a world title really early. And at that point, I'd set my platform. I'd built my business. And from then on out, it was just, time to have as much fun, get as good as I could, and do as many cool things as I could with that brand and that name.
And then let's talk about, obviously you win your first World Long Drive event, and you're hitting the ball really far. When does YouTube, social media start to come into play? Obviously, it's really taking off now, but a lot of people, especially some of the younger people in the audience, don't realize what it was like in 2018, 2019, and where it was at then. So when did you kind of pivot into social media, growing your brand, and using that World Long Drive title to get you to where you are at?
Well, the big thing was I started building a small following in 2017 and 2018. I think I went from about 1,000 followers in 2017 to 30,000 mid-2019. But then when I started winning, I started posting to Instagram twice a day. And that little burst of attention, winning those tournaments, gave my posts enough organic reach to start building a following. And I realized what was happening, so I just started posting twice a day. And over that, I started really getting traction. So instead of a couple followers a day, maybe 10 or 20 at best, it started turning into like 100 or 200. And then by the time Worlds came around, I was approaching 70,000 followers. And then that week I gained about 30,000 in the space of 2 or 3 days. And then from there, I just really doubled down. Like I just kept posting as best stuff I could. I learned everything I could about social media, the apps, how to use them, how to reach people. So that's how I built my Instagram. And from then, I kind of, after about 6 months of really going crazy on Instagram, I leveled out to just uploading a couple times a week, which has worked out fantastically because to this day, I'm still averaging like 400 to 500 followers a day. You know, it's never really stopped. It's been incredibly steady. And then TikTok was started as a joke in 2020. I didn't really take it too seriously, but I just throw the same stuff I threw up on Instagram on TikTok. I had one post with the good guys that got like 6 million views and blew up. So from there, I started uploading more to TikTok. And as of late, I've been growing on that. I'm almost at 500,000 there. And as of late, I've been growing there faster than anywhere else. So that's really been a nice surprise. And then YouTube was started out of necessity. So when the pandemic hit, Long Drive was shelved. So I bought about $6,000 worth of recording equipment and just taught myself how to film YouTube videos. And within 2 months, I turned that into a $15,000 to $20,000 a month business to basically replace my income from my lost sponsorships and my lost revenue from competing due to COVID. So that was out of necessity. Like I felt like, wow, like I got to replace this income. And so it was a big driver for me to get into YouTube.
And a lot of people don't understand the influencing game, so to speak. Like when you first start out, it's all consistency. It's very similar to practicing in golf. You were posting a ton, right? Trying to gain traction. Obviously, winning a world championship was huge. Getting over to your world record of ball speed. I don't want to skip over a couple world championships that you had after your first title, but how did you get obsessed with breaking the world record for ball speed? A lot of people want to know, what you were thinking. I know it was about 230 miles per hour was known to be untouchable, but
I did it directly into the room right adjacent from. I mean, for me, it was never like an obsession with numbers. Like, I never really got obsessed with the idea of being a record holder. It just ran parallel with my training. So like, as I was training to build up my speed reserve, which is basically like, a speed reserve is the speed that you can cruise at without exhausting yourself or overextending yourself, which is very important throughout long drive events, is you want to have a speed that you can cruise at that's faster than everybody else. And so to build up a speed reserve, you need to be able to hit very, very high peak speeds. And so I never set out to be a record holder. What I set out to be was the best long driver in the world. And to be the best long driver in the world, you need to be able to cruise at a higher speed than everybody else. So it was kind of born out of necessity. Like my desire to keep winning was the reason I kept getting faster. But obviously it was fun to break records, that was enjoyable. But I only do it so that I can become a better long driver. And, most long drivers, they peak in speed around the age of 32 to 37. So my ultimate goal is somewhere between 250 and 260 would be where I'd like to end up as my all-time best. When I got into the sport, 227 was the record. And, just a new mentality has taken over the sport now that the floodgates are open, people see what's possible. And I don't know, I want to make a run at 250 at some point. I don't know when I'll do it. It's tough because I got so many other things going on that I gotta pick my spots. I got a lot of golf tournaments coming up. I have a lot of stuff, a lot of filming, like for example, the stuff we're doing right now. Like it's tough to find a block of time where I can settle in and really push the envelope with speed. But the cool thing is I'm 28. I've got like a 10-year window to do that. where my body will still be in its physical prime and able to push maximum speed. So I'm not really worried about it right now, but I'm definitely gonna do it in the next probably 3 to 5 years, is set aside like a 3 to 6 month period of time to push the envelope, because I would love to put up a mark that's never gonna be touched. And I know I can, it's just a matter of finding the time to train for it and to do it.
Wow. And in terms of like speeds, you think you could get to 260 miles an hour ball speed? Think
Oh,
that's
yeah.
possible with the
Absolutely.
technology and everything that's going on?
Yeah, I mean, I feel very comfortable with that because, you know, as I said, I've never really pushed the envelope with it. All I've done is just, I mean, when I went 240 the first time, I wasn't even, that wasn't even a planned speed session day. I just did it for fun because after I set the longest drive record, guys, I did it before I advertised I would do it. And all these people were showing up to this course expecting to see that, and I'd already done it. So I was like, I'll just do a speed session for you guys since I'm already ready to hit. So again, I've never made it a high priority to push speed records. It's just something that I was able to do as, you know, a good collateral damage to, you know, trying to be the best long drive in the world.
Yeah,
but
and then you're kind of getting into, you know, world long drive. I know you're not competing right now. So where do you see that sport going in terms of with the new technology? Obviously got new drivers, new balls, stuff like that. But what do you think the future of the sport of world long drive is, and how involved do you want to be with it?
competition has gotten better and better. You know, the standard has gotten better and better. And for me to remain the longest hit in the world, it's required me to get literally better every year. I don't know what the future holds for the sport itself, but I feel pretty comfortable with the fact that there are always going to be these crazy, freaky long hitters in the sport. Hopefully things improve with the state of the sport so that there's more money in it and it's easier for people to be able to make the trip out to compete and for the sport to grow. As I said, I have no interest in retiring. I have to pick my places to compete because I have so many other things going on in my life. It's hard to take a week out of my time to train to deliver the performance that's expected of me for, you know, the return at the moment of the investment of time and energy. But I'm confident that we'll be able to play a few events here and there, and hopefully in the coming years, the situation will improve where I can resume a full-time schedule because, trust me, I am absolutely in peak condition. I still train every month, and I would love to display it to the world. It's just a matter of being able to have it a high enough priority for me to do that.
And then how far do you think a golf ball could go? You know, in terms of farthest, like what would a 250 ball speed even look like in terms of how far golf?
Well, the mathematics of it, you know, like for example, when I went 579, this 234 ball speed, perfectly optimized. So you would think a 250 ball probably go another 30 yards. I mean, I plan on going to Wyoming to hit it over 600 this summer, and this weekend I'll probably hit a 1,000-yard drive at the Space Center, Kennedy Space Center on the runway. But I mean, I truly don't believe there's a limit. You know, like 20, 30 years ago, I think a lot of people in long drive, if you asked them, they would have said 220 is probably the upper limit. You know, now we're over 240. So I think it's just a matter of, there's obviously an upper limit, but it's one of those things where it's the law of diminishing returns where you're never you will never hit the upper limit, you'll just approach it in a diminishing return form. If I had to give you a number, I would say we could get reasonably close to like 300 ball speed one day.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say if you fast forward 30, 40, 50 years, there's going to be some freakazoid with better technology, advanced training programs that we've never heard of or are aware of, and there might be some crazy money in the sport where you can get a few guys that are pushing 280, 290, 300. It wouldn't surprise me at all because, you know, that's just, if you think about it, club speed wise, it's only like 20, 30 miles an hour faster than guys are swinging right now. It's not that much faster. It's just a matter of the right human being, the right equipment, the right technology, the right training approach, and then having enough ability to put your time and energy into it to push those limits.
And then in terms of like, you know, you're obviously naturally talented. What do you think makes you, like, you know, your world record was what, 240 42 miles an hour?
41.6, I think.
So what makes you 16 miles an hour faster than most of these guys in ball speed?
I think a lot of it lies in my psychology. I think I have this gift to call on a much higher percentage of my maximum force than most people. So I think that's one thing. The other thing is I started so young and I started training hard so young that I have the youth of a rookie, but also the experience of a veteran when it comes to pushing my body and understanding how to maximize speeds. I think 80 to 90% of it's psychological though. I've broken the ball speed record about 8 times in the room directly to our left. And when I went 234.4, I almost had to go to the hospital because I had a heartbeat arrhythmia. And I had that arrhythmia before I hit the number. And I actually was able to get my heart to start beating in rhythm again, and I kept going. So like there have been times I've put my life at risk for this. And I just don't know how many people are willing to go to that place. And I think my peak speeds have just come out of that avenue of absolute maximal output, understanding that your body is redlining and things could happen, and I'm okay with that.
And then, looking forward, what does 2027 Kyle Berkshire look like? I know you're competing in golf, doing a lot of events out on the course. I'm practicing a ton, which is awesome to see. How do you gear up for this, next step for you in terms of playing competitive golf, and how much are you training and how focused are you daily on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot because obviously there's a lot on my plate. There's filming, there's practicing, there's competing. I still got to do long drive training. I got to lift weights, got to, cook foods, make sure my diet's good. I got to get 8 hours of sleep a night. I have to, I have sponsors that I have to make sure are satisfied and happy with the partnerships that I have. And then I obviously have filming beyond that for my YouTube channel, my Instagram, my TikTok, my Facebook. And then just other miscellaneous stuff. You got to take the laundry out. You got to do this with the car. You got to do this with that. So, and obviously not to mention travel. So there's a lot going on, and it can be very difficult to carve out time to focus and improve at your golf game. But my goal is to become an elite golfer and also the top long driver, and to be able to kind of do both of those at a high level. That'd be a lot of fun, and that's kind of my goal.
And how excited for you, with the Creator Classic, all these new platforms of all these YouTubers, and really the waves that they're making in terms of golf, everyone following them, everyone watching them. How excited for you are with that platform, and where do you think that's going to go in the future?
I mean, I think it's the future of golf entertainment. The creators hold a lot of the cards, and the PGA Tour and the Live Tour, they're acknowledging it by giving us this airtime and this attention. So I'm really excited to play a role in it, whatever that may be. And I'm grateful to have that opportunity because I know very few people are given the opportunity to have the following and the voice that I have in a sport they really enjoy and that really influence the sport. So that's something that I'm very appreciative of. I know it's a very rare and precious thing. And I know many people would love to be in my shoes right now. So my focus is just, whatever my involvement of it ends up being, I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to have fun with it. And hopefully it ends up being a positive thing for the golf world.
And who's been the most fun to play with creator-wise? I know you played with a bunch of the creators.
Fat Perez.
Fat Perez?
He's just, he's just a fun guy to hang out with, and he's just a cool dude. And he can play. So I've always enjoyed playing with him.
He's got serious game, or?
He does. He played college golf. No one realizes it. But, he can get it around the course.
Wow. And then just kind of wrapping things up here, in terms of practicing, obviously you just listed 10 things you're doing in terms of social media, travel, practicing, tournament play. How do you carve out a consistent routine to make sure you're on top of kind of all these different things that you're juggling? And how are you practicing consistently with the travel and all the other things that I outlined? How do you make sure you're still getting your reps in and you're staying focused to keep your game sharp?
Well, there's two sides to it. So one, you don't want to go overboard where you don't give yourself any rest, because there's no point in practicing if you're tired and beat up and exhausted. You're not going to get anything out of it. So my big focus has been on my recovery. So I really take my sleep seriously. I take my diet seriously. And if I can get 25 amazing, solid, fully present hours to work my game a week, it is way better than 50 hours of I'm tired, I don't want to be here, I'm exhausted. So what I try to do is prioritize recovery, and I try to rest as much as I can. If I'm on the fence between practicing or resting, I rest. And I just make sure that when I am practicing that I am fully present and I'm ready to go. A lot of it's just time management. So I'll set times that I'm gonna be doing this, times I'm gonna be doing that. And I try to make at least 3 or 4 days out of the week more heavily focused on practice days. And I really make an effort to sleep well the night before. And I'll get to the course around 8, practice from like 8 to 11. I'll go to the beach for a couple hours in the middle of the day, relax, get away from it. And I'll come back and practice again from 2 to 6. And it'll be like a 7-8 hour day, really focused practice. And I try to have 2 or 3 of those a week. And then I know realistically another 2 or 3 days are gonna be days where I can maybe do a half day, maybe 2 or 3 hours a day of good work. And there might be a day or two where if I'm lucky, I get an hour because I got a bunch of other stuff going on. And it adds up to about 25 to 30 solid hours a week. And then obviously I just fill in the cracks. Like a great example, we filmed yesterday. We filmed from 9 to 4. And then I went straight to Trump International and filmed some stuff with some other people at Trump International, and then practiced for an hour and a half after until it got dark. So I was able to fit in, 6 hours of filming, got some good content over for an hour or two, and then got another really good hour and a half, 2 hour session of practicing. And that's how you do it. It's tough, but that's how you do it. And, you just got to suck it up and get it done.
Well, thanks for your time, Kyle.
Absolutely.
We really appreciate your support with our brand, and we're excited to see where you go in the next couple of years. So
It'll be a fun couple of years. So it's been a
Awesome.
lot of fun so far.
Awesome.
Appreciate it, guys.